I saw them instantly. The late afternoon light caught the polished steel of the financial district towers, reflecting harshly off Valeria's perfectly tailored suit. She was standing outside the building I remembered starting my career in, laughing that controlled, rich laugh that always felt like a promise and a trap simultaneously. And she was talking to him, my younger self. I felt a cold dread clamp down on my chest. This was it, the inevitable echo. I had made progress with Emma, subtle shifts that hinted at a rewoven future, but the timeline was actively trying to correct itself. It had brought Valeria back. She held a champagne flute, though it was barely 4 p.m. She represented status, power, the easy route. I watched my younger self leaning in, utterly captivated. He was the ambitious fool I used to be, ready to trade genuine love for the illusion of success. I could hear fragments of their conversation over the traffic noise. Your ambition is rare, Ethan. Most men settle. You shouldn't. Valeria's voice was smooth, intoxicating. She was laying the foundation, building the gilded cage. I knew exactly where this conversation led. An invitation to a party, a connection to an investment firm, and the slow, calculated death of my relationship with Emma. I stood there, invisible to them both, paralyzed by the weight of history repeating itself. I had seen this movie before, and I was the protagonist who always lost in the end. This was more than temptation. It was destiny demanding its payment. I needed to act fast, but stepping in risked disrupting the whole fragile reality, potentially erasing the memories I had already planted in Emma's mind. If I were to fail now, I would lose her twice. I wonder, if you were me, facing the inevitable echo of a mistake you regretted most, how far would you go to break the pattern? I saw my younger self nod, a wide, excited grin spreading across his face. He reached out to shake her hand, sealing the original catastrophic deal. That was my cue. I couldn't and oppose. Watched the tragedy unfold again. I had to become the force of chaos in my own history. I pushed off the wall and started moving across the street, ignoring the blare of a taxi horn. My focus narrowed entirely on them. I had to get to him before he took that first fatal step toward my ruined future. I had to intercept Valeria. I saw her across the room immediately. Valeria. She wasn't supposed to be here yet, not according to the original timeline and Oppo's sequence. Her presence was a physical shock, a disruption in the delicate reality I was trying to build. She was exactly as I remembered her at 32. Polished, radiating lethal confidence, dressed in a way that screamed generational wealth. And she was talking to him. My younger self was leaning against the bar, listening, eyes wide with the exact mix of awe and aspiration that had sealed my fate the first time. He was already captivated by the promise of access and status she offered. It was a mirror image of the conversation that had ruined me. The timeline wasn't just pushing Valeria back. It was replicating the scenario down to the smallest gesture. I moved closer, trying to look casual, but my movements felt stiff and clumsy. I was an intruder in my own past. I heard the words clearly, and quote, "Opportunity only knocks once, Ethan." And I and Oppos, am holding the key, end quote. She used that specific, smooth tone that implied superiority and reward. My younger self nodded quickly. He was hooked on the idea of escaping his humble beginnings, blinded by the perceived value of her connection. He didn't in Oppos. See the price tag attached to her world. I had to break the connection now before she invited him to an event, before she got him alone. I felt a violent surge of anger, directed equally at her manipulative influence and at my younger, arrogant self for being so easily bought. This was the critical choice point recurring. I understood then that destiny was not an abstract force. It was Valeria, incarnated as temptation. If I were fighting fate for the second time, what immediate move would be safest? What distraction would pull him away without giving away my hand? I paused, calculating. The risk of losing Emma because of this inevitable echo was overwhelming. I watched Valeria lean in, her hand resting momentarily on young Ethan's forearm. A subtle claim of ownership. And quote, "I need to talk to you," end quote. I stated, stepping directly behind young Ethan, my voice low and urgent, cutting through Valeria and Apo's conversation. My younger self turned, irritated by the interruption. And quote, "Now is not a good time, old man. I'm discussing something important." End quote. Valeria smoothly intervened, smiling faintly at me, her eyes cold. She recognized the hostility, if not the reason for it. End quote. "It seems your friend requires your attention, Ethan. We'll finish this conversation later." End quote. She emphasized an Apo's, later and Apo's, like a promise or a threat. End quote. "This can and Apo's. Wait, end quote." I insisted, grabbing young Ethan's arm and pulling him away from the bar and from her gravity. Valeria watched us go, her expression a perfect blend of patience and malice. I knew that look. She understood the game. She just needed to wait for her move. I had won the battle for this second, but the war for the timeline had just intensified. I had to get him clear of the city before she finished setting her trap. I saw her across the room. The gallery felt instantly colder. Valeria stood there, a magnetic force draped in silent wealth, effortlessly pulling attention away from the art and onto herself. She was speaking intently to my younger self. He was laughing, a bright, naive sound I hadn't in Apo's heard since I entered this past timeline. That laugh tore through me. I remembered that excitement. It was the same excitement that led me to choose a gilded cage over genuine happiness. I watched him lean in, hanging on her every perfectly calibrated word. She wasn't in Apo's just talking about opportunities. She was selling him a future that wasn't in Apo's earned, a shortcut to success. She was selling status. I moved closer, weaving through the small crowd, feeling the old, sickening pull of her presence even now, 10 years later. This was the precise moment the mistake began, the slow poisoning of my integrity. "It's about making the right connections, Ethan," I heard her say, placing a possessive hand lightly on his forearm. Her eyes, however, found mine over his shoulder. They held a silent challenge. She knew I was trouble, a disruption. My younger self turned slightly, noticing my abrupt appearance. He frowned, slightly annoyed by the interruption. "Hey, older Ethan. Valeria was just telling me about a networking dinner next week." Valeria's smile was razor-sharp. "It's exclusive, the kind of event that changes trajectories overnight." I stepped fully into the conversation, keeping my gaze locked on Valeria, not him. Trajectories often look better on paper than they feel in reality. "Ethan, sometimes the longest path is the only one worth taking." She chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "Philosophies are easy when you have nothing to lose, right?" She had always known how to cut me down, even before I knew I deserved it. I hated how quickly the younger me retreated, intimidated by her confidence. "It's an investment in your future, Ethan," she pressed, ignoring me entirely now and focusing her full gravitational pull back onto him. "It's time to stop waiting for life to happen." I saw the hunger flicker in his eyes, the ambition that had ruined me. This was the fate I was fighting. This feeling, the crushing realization that destiny was so easily bought and sold, made my stomach clench. Can I really stop destiny this time? Or am I just watching the beginning of the same terrible story? "I need to know what you think." She pulled a glossy card from her small clutch and pressed it into his hand. "Friday night. Don't be late." She didn't end Apo's need a confirmation. She operated on certainty. She turned, gave me one final cold stare of triumph, and melted back into the crowd. I stood there, watching the younger me stare at the card, already dreaming of the opulence and power promised on the invitation. I knew I had lost this round. The hook was set. I had until Friday to cut the line before he walked away from Emma forever. I saw them immediately across the reception area. Valeria was leaning in, her voice low and confident, deploying the exact charm and promise of luxury that I knew was fatal. She was a force of nature designed to pull my younger self back into the vortex of status and wealth. This was the echo I had feared, destiny repeating itself with alarming precision. My younger self was captivated. He wasn't Apo's looking at a woman. He was looking at an open door to a life without struggle, the life I had eventually achieved and immediately ruined. I recognized the hungry look in his eyes because it had been mine. I moved through the crowd, ignoring the slight tremor in my hands. I knew I had to intervene, even if it solidified my role as the crazy, persistent stranger. Valeria spotted me first. Her smile, which had been warm and inviting for younger Ethan, evaporated into a cold, assessing mask. She recognized a threat, though she couldn't and oppose. Possibly know I was the ghost of her future failure. End quote. Ethan, who is this man? End quote. She asked my younger self, her hand resting possessively on his arm. End quote. He looks utterly stressed. End quote. I ignored her. I stood directly in front of him, blocking his view of the high society surrounding us. End quote. You are wasting time, end quote. I stated plainly. End quote. You are falling for the exact trap that will destroy your life. End quote. Younger Ethan bristled, defensive of the glamorous woman beside him. End quote. You keep saying that. What right do you have? End quote. Valeria chimed in smoothly, her tone dripping with cultivated concern. End quote. He seems obsessed with your choices, darling. Perhaps he made a poor choice himself and now needs validation. End quote. She tilted her head toward me. End quote. Do you think he has the strength to resist this temptation now? Or is he doomed to repeat the cycle? End quote. Her casual cruelty was calculated and precise. It hit the exact nerve I had been trying to heal. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to explain the decade of regret I carried. I couldn't and oppose. Win this argument with words. End quote. I am offering you freedom, end quote. I told my younger self. End quote. She is offering you chains wrapped in diamonds, end quote. Younger Ethan laughed, a short, dismissive sound that was all too familiar. End quote. Chains or a future? I know what I prefer. End quote. He stood up, towering over me slightly. End quote. I choose the future with a view, and it doesn't and oppose. Involve listening to some delusional prophet of doom, end quote. Valeria offered me a triumphant, pitying smile. The timeline had snapped back into place. I had lost the battle for his mind. I stepped back, realizing my mistake. My objective was never to save him from the choice. It was to prove to Emma that I had changed the choice. Fighting the destination was futile. I had to secure the anchor. I turned and walked away from the glittering, expensive lie. I had to find Emma. Every moment I spent fighting Valeria and my past self was a moment she was vulnerable. The threat was immediate. The time I had bought was already running out. I had to make my move now, before the inevitable echo consumed us both. I found Valeria waiting near the exit of the Old Town Cafe, the place where Emma and I used to meet. It was a deliberate choice of location, a territorial marker. She was wearing an expensive dress that screamed wealth and detachment, an absolute contrast to the quiet, artistic neighborhood. I approached her directly. I felt nothing but cold recognition, no lingering attraction, just the sight of a massive mistake standing before me. End quote. You look thinner, Ethan, end quote. She started, her voice laced with that familiar condescension. End quote. The poverty of good intentions doesn't and oppose. Suit you. I saw your younger self earlier. He still has potential unlike you. End quote. I didn't flinch. End quote. I am not interested in your appraisal, Valeria. Leave the young Ethan alone. He is making his own choices. End quote. She laughed, a sharp, elegant sound that used to make me feel important. Now it sounded hollow. End quote. Choices? You mean the choice to stay mediocre? Look at yourself. You sacrifice status, influence, everything for sentimentality. End quote. End quote. I sacrificed 10 years of my life chasing your illusion. End quote. I countered, keeping my voice low and steady. End quote. And now I'm back to fix it. End quote. Her eyes narrowed. She had sensed the shift in my core, the weight of the future I carried. End quote. You talk as if you've been gone. You've just been pathetic, Ethan. You are still the same desperate boy who needed validation from the Morgan name. End quote. I felt the old anger surface, but I controlled it immediately. That was the old Ethan's reaction. The new Ethan dealt in facts. End quote. I am 34 years old inside this body, Valeria, end quote. I stated, letting the silence hang heavy between us. End quote. I know how this story ends. It ends with you betraying me, and me realizing I lost everything that mattered because I believed in the price tag instead of the person. End quote. She paused, genuinely shocked by the clinical precision of my attack. She wasn't used to being analyzed. She was used to being worshipped. End quote. If you truly believe you can rewrite destiny, end quote. She challenged, leaning closer, her scent of expensive perfume overwhelming, end quote. Then you are far more arrogant than I remember, end quote. End quote. Arrogance is chasing a perfect life built on lies. This is necessity, end quote. I told her. I looked at the absolute conviction in her eyes, the force of the timeline pushing her into my path, demanding I choose her again. I understood then that this wasn't an oppose. Just a physical woman standing here. This was the test. This was the inevitable echo of my worst choice. It made me wonder, truly, if anyone else understood the sheer weight of trying to choose a different, harder path. If you had one chance to change your biggest mistake, would you risk everything to do it? I turned my back on her before she could offer another temptation. I had to get back to Emma. Every minute I spent here, wrestling with the ghost of my past, was a minute Valeria could use to ensnare the younger, weaker version of myself. I heard her voice behind me, sharper now, less seductive, more dangerous. End quote. You can run, Ethan, but the future you rejected always comes back. And I am patient. End quote. I didn't oppose. Reply. I walked away, feeling the heavy burden of the ticking clock. I had confronted the inevitable, but I knew I hadn't oppose. Defeated it. I had only enraged it. I needed to move faster than fate itself. I watched Valeria. She was a shadow across the timeline, elegant and ruthless. I saw her engage my younger self at the gallery opening, talking about investment opportunities and exclusivity. She wasn't an oppose. Just flirting. She was offering him the keys to the future I already lived and hated. That version of me was weak to status, easily bought. I felt the timeline pulling hard, trying to snap back into its original, tragic course. I realized how precious the second chance was, and I refused to let history claim me again. I needed to act decisively. I walked straight toward Emma, ignoring the gravitational pull of Valeria and young Ethan. Valeria watched me, her perfect smile faltering slightly when she realized I was no longer a target. Her presence was cold, a persistent echo demanding the old order. I reached Emma near a corner display. She turned when I approached, her expression holding that familiar mix of hope and profound caution. I realized I was forcing her to face the impossible. The man she loved, but changed, carrying 10 years of grief she hadn't oppose. Lived through. End quote. I need you to know something, end quote. I said, my voice low and steady. End quote. I chose wrong before. I know that now. I destroyed my own life for nothing. End quote. I paused, absorbing the weight of my past mistake. The pain was real even here in the present. I had seen the destruction. I realized how monumental this effort was, this fight against inevitability. I often wondered if anyone else was given such a clear chance at redemption. Do you ever wonder what one specific choice could rewrite in your own life? I had the answer staring back at me. End quote. But this time, end quote. I continued, looking deeply into her eyes, end quote. There is no choice to make. It's only you, end quote. She didn't oppose. Immediately respond. She just studied my face, searching for the truth beneath the words, searching for the man who would never betray her. I could see the barrier in her eyes begin to drop. She reached out, her fingers brushing my arm. That touch was the confirmation I needed. The fragile progress was real. End quote. I believe you, end quote. She whispered. The air shifted, the tension broken. I had won the battle, at least for tonight. But as we stood there, shielded from the chaos Valeria represented, Emma's eyes widened suddenly. It wasn't an oppose. Confusion. It was recognition mixed with sheer panic. End quote. Ethan, end quote. She breathed, pulling back slightly. End quote. Wait, you just said something? End quote. End quote. What did I say? End quote. I asked, instantly alert. Every word I spoke now felt loaded. End quote. You said, and oppos? It and oppos. Es only you and oppos. But I remember hearing that phrase before. Years from now. You said it the morning you left for good. End quote. Impossible. That line was my tearful, desperate confession years in the future. Minutes before Valeria returned to mock me. Emma couldn't and oppos. T know those words yet. The timeline wasn't and oppos. T just fighting me. It was actively leaking the future into the past, infecting her memory. The cost of rewriting history was beginning to emerge, and it was focusing on her.